What is happening, guys? Welcome to episode 2 of Quarantine Combos. Just quickly, I want to say thank you for everybody that messaged me that they enjoyed yesterday's video. And again, if you want anything covered, any subject you want me to talk about, please either DM me, or when I have those things on my Instagram story where you guys can submit a question or a topic, then please do so. So today's topic was actually submitted yesterday, so I figured, hey, we'll answer it right here, right now. And that is, should you keep prepping in 2020? Now, this is a very broad question, and it's very much situation depending, and to give it a yes or no answer isn't right. I can't just say, no, you shouldn't prep for 2020, because for some people that might not apply. For some people that might apply. So I want to kind of get rid of that black and white yes or no and have just an open conversation with you guys about the subject of prepping in 2020. So let's take my situation specifically, and I'll explain to you guys why I made the decisions that I made, and this can help you guys for yourself if you're prepping or if you're considering prepping, and kind of make up your own decisions, and then take what I'm going to tell you and use that as you will. So my show was in New York, which, if you guys don't know, New York's in a really bad spot right now. I think it's surpassed Italy as far as total cases and death rate and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Italy's not looking so good. So my show was in upstate New York, which was about, I think, 2 hours across the border for me. So for me to try to go to that show, odds are I wasn't going to be able to get there. For two reasons. Obviously, number one being New York being in a state of chaos. They weren't having any events. They weren't letting anybody do anything. So that's number one. But also, I got to try to get across the border, which they closed for all non-essential travel. So me doing a bodybuilding show, I don't think that's considered essential. So those two things right there, I can't compete, right? I can't go down and do the show that I wanted to do. And we'll take a step back and look at my goal this year, which was becoming a WNBF pro, getting my natural pro card. And for me to do a show that would enable me to get that pro card, if I was to do it in Canada, I had to go out west. I had to go to BC, like Vancouver, Kelowna, those places. And obviously flying now is a challenge, but besides that, it's very expensive and it's more time consuming to fly. So for me, it made more sense to just drive down to upstate New York and compete for the chance of getting that pro card. So once the idea of not getting a pro card, once that got kind of pulled away, so did my mindset of competing. I don't want to compete and do just random shows for the sake of competing. As much as I do enjoy it, I have more specific goals now, whereas when I was a first-time competitor, I just wanted to be on stage. I just wanted to compete and get that stage experience and learn the ins and outs of competing, whereas now my goals are a little bit more specific. So it very much depends on where you are in your competitive journey, right? So for me to make the call of putting prep on hold, it made sense, right? When you look at the chance of getting a pro card is probably not there, and the likelihood of me being able to even get to the show is likely not there. So that kind of comes into my situation. So now we look at, if you're competing or if you were looking to compete, when is your show? I've had numerous competitors that A, I was coaching, and B, that have just reached out to me that were supposed to compete anywhere from April, May, June, and those shows have all been postponed. They've all been moved. Just recently, actually, a show in June got moved to September. And that's my understanding of when they're hopeful that things are going to start to clear up and they're going to be able to start doing these events. Probably still with restrictions. I would assume somewhere along the lines of having an audience might be still restricted, and how they structure the show so they only have a limited number of athletes in the venue at a certain time. But anyways, August, September, October, that's kind of when they're hoping that they can start running shows again. So those athletes that were looking to compete in the next few months, right, they can look at maybe postponing their show and doing a show in the late summer, fall, and still get on stage, right? It very much depends on where you're at with prep and how you're feeling and all this kind of stuff, because you know, some people can be near the end of a prep and just be like completely, I'm done. Like once the show's done, I'm done dieting. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't feel good. I'm exhausted. My social life's shit. I don't have any free time. So those people, maybe it's not a good call. But if you're someone like many of my athletes were that they're like, no, I still want to compete. Let's continue on and just make the adjustments needed. So that's what we've done, right? For a lot of them, it's been slowly tapering calories up to keep condition in check, pulling back cardio a little bit so they're not expending as much, and doing what we can with training and keeping nutrition in check. So then when this kind of settles down a little bit when it comes to the whole virus thing, and we now have some concrete ideas of when shows are, we can say, okay, you're in reasonable condition now that we need another 12 weeks to get you in good stage shape, and then we'll go and we'll do the show. So that's the whole thing about it, right? And then if you weren't competing in the next little while and you were looking at later shows, or if you haven't even started prep yet, then there's still a chance that you can probably get on stage. And if not, you can do what I did, and that's get some photos done, right? I am still keeping in reasonable shape for the chance that something happens in the later part of the year. But I still wanted to get a photo shoot done to kind of document this whole process and how far I'd come and the physique that I do have. So if you're in that boat where you can do that, I highly recommend it, because it's a way to, like I said, document how that prep went, and you know, relive that process and be proud of the physique you built. So time frame wise is huge, guys. Another thing that I want to touch on is your goals, right? What was your goal of competing this year? Obviously for me, if my goal is to become a pro and win a pro card, which is only in select shows, and I can't do those shows, well then maybe I'm not going to compete this year. And as frustrating as that may be, then that's okay, because I'll compete next year and when those shows do run. But if you're someone who's new, or you're someone who just likes to compete because you enjoy it, you like the stage, you like the whole atmosphere of show day and getting up there and displaying your hard work, then it doesn't really matter when your show is, where it is, the caliber, like whether it's a regional event or a national event or whatever. If you're someone that's just wanting to compete for the sake of competing, then there's really no issue, right? Again, if it comes back to you feeling good with prep and you have, you know, a good handle on everything, you can still keep going and not, you know, run yourself into the ground. Then whether you compete in April or June or August, like what's it matter, as long as you can still keep things in check. And that comes back to, you know, how much time you have, right? If you're someone that has all the time in the world that you can dedicate, which you know, let's be honest, we all have a lot of time right now because most of us aren't working. We have a lot of hours in the day that we can dedicate towards like prepping our food, making sure our meals are good, doing our cardio, practicing posing as us competitors we need to do, you know, making sure your sleep is good. Like there's all these other things that we now have control over too, right? So you can really almost make this prep like the most successful prep you can have, because you don't have any excuses of like, oh, you know, I had to work this much, so I didn't have all my meals prepared, or I had to go to this, you know, community work event, so I missed out on my cardio, or I couldn't train that day. Like that's all out the window, right? And then the last point that is, you know, some people don't like when guys like me say this, but it's how bad you want it, right? If you took COVID breakout, everything being canceled, postponed, whatever, if you took that as the first opportunity to say, okay, I'm not prepping, I'm not competing, then maybe it wasn't for you. Maybe you didn't want it bad enough. And I don't mean that as like a knock on anybody, because there's no, like, competing is kind of cool now, right? I think people feel peer pressured, or because they want to get the kind of social media fame and admiration from their peers to compete, when really they don't love it, right? Like you can't expect to do well in bodybuilding or competing in general if you don't love it and you're just kind of doing it for the wrong reasons, because it will wear you down and you won't be successful in it, right? So when it comes to looking at competing in 2020, like if you want it really bad, then, and the shows do run later in the year, like you could still make it happen, right? But if you now are like, oh, shows aren't competing, you start eating shit and you start you're not training, you're not doing any cardio that you need to do, like all these little things that add up to you not being successful. If you use this opportunity to just, oh well, is what it is, then you didn't want it bad enough. And the people that do want it bad enough, there's quite a few clients that come to mind right now that are doing everything they can with the equipment that they have. They're still checking in, they're still getting it done, and those are the ones that will step on stage, whether it is the end of the year, whether it is next year. They'll be able to step on stage and be like, man, I still did what I needed to do. And that's, same for myself. I'm still getting in workouts every single day. I'm still eating in the fashion that I need to. And yeah, maybe things aren't as perfect as they were a month ago, but we can make things as perfect as we can right now. And that's something that everybody needs to understand. And the people that put the time and the effort in to make the most of the situation and make the most out of their training, make the most out of their nutrition and all this stuff, they're the ones that will be successful. And those are the people that will be able to, like I said, get on that stage and stand up there and be proud and know that they did everything they could and survived this pandemic without letting it completely screw their goals up, right? And that's what it comes down to. At the end of the day, like, it comes down to what your goals are. And if your goals are important to you, and if they're important, like if they're as important as you say they are, and you post that they are, then stuff like this, as much as it sucks, isn't gonna derail you, right? Like, I see so many people now being like, oh, like I don't even want to train anymore, or oh, like I don't blah blah. I'm like, how do you not, like, how did you love training 2 weeks ago and then all of a sudden you don't love it now, right? Like I can't go a day now, especially now having all the time in the world, can't go a day without training in some form or another. And I think those are the people that you kind of start to see that they weren't in it for the right reasons, and they're getting like filtered out now, because the people that do genuinely love this, regardless of if it's training at your house or training at the gym, or me yesterday training outside because that's what I had, those are the people that are going to continue to progress and get it done. And then when the gyms do reopen, then they can go back to the gym and they're not farther behind, and they didn't just give up and quit like everybody else did. So yeah, I think as far as prepping in 2020 goes, look at your situation, right? Have an open and honest conversation with yourself about what it is you want, how bad you want it, and then go from there, right? I don't think it's out of the question to look at shows later in the year for many competitors if they're willing to do the work to get there, right? I think myself and other coaches that I speak with and just people that I see in the industry are very hopeful that, once things kind of clear up by the end of the summer, early fall, that shows can start running again. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, like there might be still restrictions, but whether you get on stage in front of a crowd of 300 or a crowd of 3, you're still gonna get on that stage and you're still gonna be up there with knowing that you did everything you could to get there and be successful. So yeah, that's it, guys. I hope this, provided you, like I said, with some insight and some information and just my take on it. I think a lot of people are kind of lost with what to do right now, and hopefully this can give you some direction and some help with your decision making moving forward. So thanks for watching Quarantine Combos episode 2. As I said at the beginning of the video, anything you want me to talk about, send it to me on Instagram, send it to a DM, comment on this YouTube video, and we'll get it done, because we're gonna do these every day just for funsies, just because we got the time to do it, and this is a platform we can do it on. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one.